the courts are, I don't know, I'm struggling to find the words. I mean, for lawyers, they're easy places, right? For lawyers, they're easy places to go operate out of and all that. But for a litigant, they're not easy places to be. So there is a problem with the legal process. Do courts follow procedure? No, they don't. They follow the broad strokes, right? They're very difficult. They don't understand the nitty-gritties properly. They don't understand the spirit behind the nitty-gritties properly. Some judges do, but there's a problem in how they understand. When Leah and Arijit were talking about this burden of proof, I just remembered two incidents, and it is very difficult in India. One, it is very difficult in India to show good documentation, even today, right? If and you can try this out at home, actually, with your parents or grandparents. Ask them to show the full details of any property that has come down from your grandfather to your or grandmother or grandfather to your mother or father. 99.99 cases in India, property papers you can't trace very clearly. There's always ambiguity. Names will have been spelt improperly. She gave the example of Ghulam Ali, Ghulam Khan. I don't know who gave that example, but Ghulam. I mean, forget about previous generation. If I go to a court and come out, my name will be spelled in three different ways in our process. So there is a problem there in terms of documentation. So even in ordinary circumstances, even in places like Karnataka or Andhra Pradesh or Tamil Nadu, when you're disputing ownership of property, which is dependent on paperwork, it is very difficult to prove it. So that's a problem. And then I want to conclude this remark by giving another funny thing that happened with my own family. My sister-in-law was living in Dubai, and she wanted to invite her aunt, that is her mother's sister, to come and visit her. And if you're an immediate family member of the person who's residing in Dubai, then apparently you can get some long-term visa or something like that. The question came up, and this is something, it struck me when Leah was talking about. There is no document there's no one single document where you're able to show that another person is your aunt, particularly from your mother's side. You can show your mother, you can show your father, you can show your siblings. That too only if the ration card system is still being followed. Otherwise, there is no single piece of paper that you're able to show that somebody is your uncle or aunt or brother. You can show your brother's birth certificate, yes, which shows the same parents, but it could be different. God forbid if the father's name is spelled differently in both birth certificates, then it's gone. So we have day-to-day challenges about some of these things, right? And wherein you're in extraordinary, I'm not trying to undermine the process, right? I'm not trying to say, okay, therefore we have a very bad process, so therefore give everybody citizenship. That is not the point that we are. I don't think any of us are saying that. What we are saying is there is a problem with our process, the way we go about it. And what more safeguards, when you're looking at sensitive issues, you need to be building more safeguards, not undermining the existing safeguards. You have an appeal, if you lose a property case, you can go all the way to the Supreme Court. That makes, depending on which court you enter, about 4 appeals. Here it looks like it's not the case. I'll stop there.
And on that note, given that the Supreme Court is sort of overseeing the NRC process, one definite outcome is going to be that we're going to find there is probably going to be at least 1 million people who will not be able to establish citizenship. And this is an optimistic estimate because as per the latest figures, only 20% of the 4 million excluded have been able to file applications. Assume there is a rush of people in the last 1 week before the deadline to file the applications, and somehow even 75% managed to file. All of them are accepted. I would say at least 1 million people will suddenly find themselves without citizenship. And this of course, the Supreme Court has no solution to offer. It can't offer a solution. What really has to be the response of our legal system and our political system to the situation? Because at the moment, our laws also don't know how to deal with the situation. Because I know, as we've been discussing, you will need hundreds more foreigners tribunals even just to process the claims. Forget about deciding these cases. And even if 10% of those people, 1 million people, are able to file appeals or find somebody to file an appeal for them, you're going to overwhelm the Guwahati High Court with, in technological terms, it's called a distributed denial of service attack. You will have a real life equivalent of that, where double the annual filing of the Guwahati High Court will be filed in 1 year if even 10% of the people who are left out challenge this case. So the solution, I see it can't be to send these people back to the existing judicial system and say, go work your way out of it. It will have to be some sort of a political measure which results in some sort of a law or results in some sort of a scheme in some way. What do we see this as being? And how do we see this as playing out if it had to be left to politics? Or what would be the ideal outcome that if this happens, how would we want to see it resolved?
So, as Arijit had mentioned, we think that what is going to happen is work permits, because as you said, I mean, there's no question of this going into many rounds of appeals. And interestingly, India hasn't had any talks with Bangladesh about this. Bangladesh has already said NRC is an internal matter. We are not taking anybody. You are just targeting Bengali-speaking people. So Bangladesh is not going to take anyone. So I think realistically, what we are looking at is work permits. But again, then what happens to their citizenship? I mean, they'll never be able to leave India. So of course, it's quite complicated.
I mean, there's also been a sanction of 48 crore rupees for a new detention center, which will house 3,000 detainees. Within a year, they're planning to build it.
Which is less than 0.3% of the people who, in an optimistic scenario.
Yes. So that's also there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think also elections 2019, what happens, and if they really want to sort of drag this on, is something which looks like they will.
Actually, I don't think we'll see a solution for this. And why is that? Because this is a problem that has continued since 1950, right? And you're talking about, I'm just doing the math, right? I'm a child of the 70s. So since independence, I'm sure there are some people here who were born. Is there somebody who was born in the 2000 here? Yeah, okay. Right.
Okay. Thank you for that existential crisis.
Right? No. Well, the point I'm making is that you're talking about 5, 7, 6 generations. Let's assume, and this is a question, I don't have an answer to this, but I just want to pose the problem if we had not thought about it in this way. Let's assume somebody illegally migrated in 1951, right? And so theoretically his grandson or great-grandson, great-grandchildren are also alive, right? What are they supposed to do? Essentially, they will become stateless people. And you cannot let that continue for too long, even from, you can't assume that you will have new detention centers for, that entire, line of descendants for kingdom come, right? So what are we going to do? I think this is a problem, and judges can't solve this problem, right? And this is a political. I suppose your question was that what is a political solution to it?
Yeah.
I don't have an answer, right? I suppose maybe the people who are organizing the symposium can come up with an answer. It's not. See, it's a difficult question, and this is something. So, if you look at it, you can take the view that what some judges in the U.S. are taking, right? That when they try to send very young people, separate them from their kids, from their parents, and do all that. The court stood up there, right? So maybe that's what needs to happen here. How do you protect families, right, that have been here? And of course, yes, we don't, because our Citizenship Act doesn't really give citizenship to anybody who's born here.
Yeah.
I mean, although there is the one section talking about that, but there are exceptions which capture all these guys. So maybe we need to be politically, there needs to be a large-hearted approach, but it's a hot potato.
Yeah.
Right. So my suspicion is that we won't see any solution to this, any formal solution to this. What we may do, and this is what our state excels at doing, our state and political system excels at doing, is create a gray area and let things lie until another political cycle where this becomes an issue.
And I think that is really, which is the heart of this debate, because we are being faced with, in the context of the NRC and also the Citizenship Amendment Bill, we are being faced with not just a legal issue or not just an immigration issue, if you want to reduce it to that. We are facing larger issues, we are talking about larger political issues, we are talking about larger cultural and socio-economic issues, which, in as much as the law can address and help and solve in some way, it can't be the domain of the law alone. It can't just be that there is one quick fix legal solution, or you fix this institution and it'll be fine. We are going to have to, at some point, when I say we, I also mean the people in positions of power, pull up their sleeves and get their hands dirty into actually saying, okay, this is what we have to go and do. We can't potentially just kick the can down the road and say maybe someone else will solve it, because that is the pressing issue of this matter.
Sir, Alok, if I may, I just remembered, if you actually look at the problem in Assam itself, there have actually been sort of broad amnesties, right, in terms of the threshold date has moved, right, quite a bit. It moved from 1950 to 1966, then 1971 because of the war. So it's not as if it's never been addressed.
Yes.
Now I think what's happening is some of those decisions are being questioned through this indirect process now. Even the 1971 sort of broad amnesty of making everybody citizens before that is being questioned. So maybe there will be an answer to it. And there is some precedent, political precedent
for this thing. So, on that note, what I guess we can do for the next half an hour or so is we can throw open the floor to questions. I have usually only 2 rules. You have to state your name and you have to only ask a question. So, let's sort of... sorry? Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry, I totally forgot. I think we'll have the short video from Amnesty right now, and then we'll have the questions.
সকালে 5টায়